Welcome to Conlang Critic. Welcome to Reform Review, the show that gets facts wrong, right, about your favourite conlangs, least favourite language reforms. Okay, well, whoever wrote this script really needs to make their writing clearer. Welcome to Reform Review, the show that gets facts right about your least favourite language reforms. I'm the Casual Conlanger, and in this episode we'll be looking at the spelling reform that saves trees and really doesn't like the letter G. Cut spelling. Cut spelling is an English spelling reform proposed by the late Christopher Upwood and colleagues. The first edition was published in 1992 and made popular by the Simplified Spelling Society. The term cut spelling was allegedly coined by the psychologist Valerie Yule in the 1970s, who had remarked on the abundance of silent or misleading letters in traditional English orthography, like the K in knee or the E in mischief. Orthography is the collection of rules for writing a language, in our case English, such as capitalization, punctuation, emphasis, and most importantly, spelling. For example, American and English conventions for capitalization and punctuation do not or rarely differ, but the spelling and emphasis conventions do. Think color and color, or chromate and cremate. The reason I explained that is because there are in fact several types of language reforms: orthography reforms, better known as spelling reforms, vocabulary reforms, grammar reforms, and subsets, where vocabulary and grammar are restricted in order to simplify the language. Within those, there are subtypes of reforms, but that's for another video, and I've said reform way too much now. Cut spelling, as its name suggests, is a spelling reform whose main goal is to facilitate reading and writing for native and non-native English speakers alike by cutting out unnecessary letters. It uses English spelling as a baseline, which increases familiarity for fluent speakers, but as we'll soon see, means it runs into some pretty big problems. So, how did it approach cutting spelling? Like any good spelling reform should, by clearing up any ambiguity. Cut spelling's rules can be classed into the following three categories: deletion, substitution, and extended. The three deletion rules make up the bulk of the changes cut spelling makes. The first rule deletes letters irrelevant to pronunciation, such as silent letters and the magic E, except when those letters help to indicate it. So accept becomes accept, but cane doesn't change in order to distinguish it from can. A problem cut spelling runs into is with deleting vowels. For instance, in the word handkerchief, removing the D is a no-brainer. Nobody pronounces the D in handkerchief, and for most people removing the second E seems obvious too, right? Problem is, quite a few British English dialects, including mine in some cases, pronounce the final vowel in handkerchief more like an E than an I, which gives handkerchief. So that second E we were just about to remove is actually relevant to a lot of people, which means, depending on the writer, handkerchief now has two different spellings. Of course, one spelling could be regularized, but if the goal is to delete letters irrelevant to pronunciation, which do you choose? This is the sort of problem that many English spelling reforms run into that use English as a baseline. There's so much vowel variation from one dialect to another that without a mode vowel system, or at least an indication as to what dialects the creator speaks, changes based on personal pronunciation get real sticky real fast. The second rule removes unstressed vowels in some environments. Most unstressed vowels in English are pronounced but appear in words in many different forms. For most speakers, the adjective separate has two schwa vowels in a row. Get rid of both unstressed vowels in the spelling, however, and the magic E at the end, and you'll get this mess of a word, which can be interpreted in a multitude of ways. Cut spelling's workaround for this was for unstressed vowels to only be deleted from spelling before the approximants l and r, and the nasals m, n, ng, which have often been analysed as syllabic consonants in words like bottom, bottle, button, and in rhotic dialects, butter. Syllabic consonants are consonants that form syllables or the nucleus of a syllable on their own, and are limited to approximants and nasals in most languages. The outlier here, of course, is ng, but in unstressed syllables it's pretty obvious that the vowel before it is I as a regular suffix in English that often centralizes to a more schwa-like sound in spoken English after consonants, which brings us to the next part of the rule. This rule also applies to most regular suffixes, like full, munt, and most importantly, ubble and ibble, completely removing the confusing spelling distinction between them, despite them being pronounced identically in most words. Here's an example of this change in effect. She is a responsible adult. The third rule consists of removing double letters, unless, once again, their retention provides a meaningful distinction. So spelling becomes spelling, but Holly doesn't change to differentiate it from holy. This rule definitely could have been included in Rule 1, but I suppose it was felt that letters irrelevant to pronunciation and double letters, most cases, weren't the same. Needless to say, cut spelling's rules could have been far more refined. Cut spelling's substitution rules help to disambiguate some, but not all, unintuitive digraphs and trigraphs. PH and GH become F when pronounced F, so photography simplifies to photography, and cough turns into cough. G becomes J when pronounced J or J, so judge becomes judge, and bougie transforms into bougie or bougie. Bougie. IG and IGH are written Y when pronounced I, so sign and flight become sign and flight, respectively. As an extended rule, this change can be made to any word wherein I is spelt unusually, like I, which simply becomes Y. Why? The other extended rules are as follows. CH can be written K when pronounced as such, so dichotomy becomes dichotomy, with or without the second O, depending on how you pronounce it. Another problem with cut spelling. Words ending in shun are replaced by SHN, so magician, mansion, mission, Martian, and motion are written like this. Only proper nouns are written with capitals, so France remains France, but French becomes French, and apostrophes are solely used to link words, which I think Christopher Upwood meant in terms of distinctive contractions, like sheed and wheel, keeping distinct from shed and well, but not for omission or possession, like a clock and Joe's house, where no distinction needs to be made. With these 10 rules in place, and a if you don't like it this way, spell it normally option for hesitant or dissatisfied users of cut spelling, normal text can be reduced by about 8 to 15%. Spelling reforms are difficult to get right. The ideal reform would make English spelling completely phonemic, with one letter per sound. So let's put cut spelling to the test, and first see which consonants are phonemic with cut spelling. Not good. Even the ones I've marked in green have exceptions, as mentioned in the notes under the table. Complete failure. How about vowels? Oh well, better luck next time. Can all the rules fit in one page of 11-point Consolas text? Okay, so at least the changes are relatively concise and few in number. As a final test, we're going to see how cut spelling handles these 30 words that are relatively well known for their ambiguous spelling and or pronunciation. Misspell, pharaoh, weird, intelligence, pronunciation, handkerchief, logorrhea, chiaroscurist, pochamuchka, gobbledygook, nauseous, indict, fish, liquefy, Wednesday, sherbet, bologna, playwright, fuchsia, minuscule, ingenious, sacrilegious, accommodate, orangutan, mischievous, gubernatorial, acquiesce, conscientious, paraphernalia, and onomatopoeia. Of those 30 words, I'd argue that only these 10 words are made easier, which is a pretty poor result. The following extract of cut spelling was taken from the cut spelling Wikipedia page and highlights its most notable advantages. Pause the video to read it and see how you get along. When readers first see cut spelling, as in this sentence, they often hesitate slightly, but then quickly become accustomed to the shortened words and soon find text in cut spelling as easy to read as traditional orthography. But it is the writer who really appreciates the advantages of cut spelling, as many of the most troublesome uncertainties have been eliminated. Based on the rules, I would have spelt traditional more like this, but apart from that inconsistency, I had no problems reading this text, even with a little prior exposure as a native English speaker. If I weren't able to recognize words quickly, I would have had a much harder time. Despite several obvious flaws, I like cut spelling. Its main fault is that it modifies English with the worst baseline, English, instead of reworking spelling from the ground up. Its second fault, which is caused by the first, is that the usage rules are too vague. It's okay for a personal spelling reform to have rules allowing for varying amounts of changes to be made with how varied different dialects of English can be. As it is right now, it would make international communication so much messier with 1 to 3 different spellings for any slightly ambiguous word. And since English is one of the most important languages on a global scale, that isn't good. To be honest, it would make national communication messier. Its third major fault also stems from the first fault. Many rules have missed opportunities. For instance, the SHN rule could have been extended to SH replacing any sh sound spelt ambiguously, changing conscientious to conscientious, which admittedly looks worse, but is far easier to infer pronunciation from. At the very least, it mostly achieves the goals it set out to accomplish, and doesn't oblige native speakers to completely relearn spelling. However, because the pronunciation cannot be inferred from spelling, and vice versa, especially for English learners, it still fails in many ways to completely disambiguate English English spelling for native and non-native speakers alike, but it does take a few steps in the right direction. Since this is the only reform I have reviewed, cut spelling is currently my favourite spelling reform. As most of you might have figured out, this series was heavily inspired by Jan Miesley's Conlang critic, so if you did like this video, please go check their channel out in the description box, and say hi from me if you haven't been to their channel before. Let me know if you have any suggestions for English or maybe other language reforms you want me to review. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, where I'll be reviewing Parallel English. Just give me a second, I need to plug my headset in because it's gonna run out of charge, and I don't have it. Yes, I do. Oh my god. Yes. I forgot.